Make me stay late for not being 15 minutes early? I'll show you how early I can be. I work at a casino as a dealer. We have a first in first out way of scheduling dealers. So if you start at 7 p.m., you get to leave before people that started at 8 p.m. when they are able to close tables down and send you home. Pretty normal and straightforward. If more than one person starts at the same time, then who gets the option to leave first is assigned on a rotating basis. So if you have the first option one week, you will be second the following, the third after that, then back to one. So one afternoon I was reporting to work with two other dealers, all set to start at the same time. I was looking forward to a short evening, as I was the first option and I had plans after work. I arrived 10 minutes before my shift, and noticed one of the dealers who was starting at my start time was already dealing. They, the dealer, must have been in the EDR, and the pencil needed a dealer to start right away. I confirmed that they had started 15 minutes before their scheduled time, and they were the third option. Fast forward 6 hours, and we had tables we could start closing. I'm stoked to get out of there when I look over and see the dealer that started early leaving before me. I pointed out that I was supposed to be leaving before her, and she gave me a shit-eating grin and said, "Well, I started before you, so I have the first option." And then she just walked off all smug. I was super pissed and said something to the supervisor. He shrugged me off and said, "It's policy. First to start leaves first? Okay, game on." I knew this coworker had kids and had to wait for her mom to come over to babysit before she could leave for work, so she wasn't always early for her shift. I have no kids or obligations, so I started showing up 2 hours before my shift and just chilling in the EDR. I would let the supervisor know I was there in case they needed me to start early, which they always did because they would not refuse to open a table for lack of staff knowing I was on property and available to work. 3 weeks of this, and I had held the first option on every shift I worked. The dealer who was all smug about starting early was getting frustrated and angry at me. Having to stay super late every night was wearing her down. "It would be nice to get off before close just once," she said to me once as I was leaving early yet again. I told her I was just following policy, and she was welcome to show up early to make sure she was always first out. 2 more weeks and many complaints to the boss later, the policy was changed. Now, in order to jump option numbers, you have to be called in over an hour before your scheduled time. 15 minutes wasn't going to cut it anymore if you wanted to leave early. I hope that it was worth it for her staying until near close for over a month over that 15 minutes. I am petty and I have a lot of free time. Fixite now. You got it, boss. I was working in a hotel in the UK as a lobby boy. My afternoon job was to handle guest requests for extra pillows, blankets, etc. The system worked like this. The guests informed the reception, the details were written in a notebook, for example, room Xi pillow, and every so often I checked the book, solved the problems, and ticked them off when done. One night during dinner, the hotel boss wrote a note in the book. Room 30. Hot water tap is not working. I went to the room, checked it. Yup, not working. I went back and wrote in the book. Can't fix it, call a plumber. On my next round, there was a new message. Fixite now, underlined 3 times. Well, I went back to the room, checked the hot water tap again. In the UK, there are 2 taps on the sink, one for cold and one for hot. Still couldn't fix it. I tried a few things until somehow, the pipe, the one from the wall to the sink, popped out, and boiling hot water started pouring onto the floor at full force. Panic mode on. I grabbed the room phone and called reception, busy. So I sprinted through the hotel, the room was on the farthest side, jumped into reception and shouted, "Room Xi plumber now." Then I rushed back to the room. The water was still gushing out at full force, so I just sat on the edge of the bathtub, holding the pipe so that the water poured into the tub instead of flooding the floor. After about 3 minutes of this, the hotel boss peeked into the bathroom, went pale, and ran away. 5 more minutes passed. Then the fire alarms went off because of the steam. Fortunately, the staff already knew what was happening, so they told the guests it was a false alarm and didn't evacuate the hotel. Another 10 minutes later, they finally shut off the water supply for the entire wing of the hotel. A plumber arrived and fixed the tap in 3 minutes. Now came the fun part: cleaning. Surprisingly, there wasn't much water in the bathroom, considering the tap had been gushing for over 15 minutes. So I went one floor lower to see where all that water had gone. I entered the room's bathroom, switched on the light, but it was very dim. That's when I realized the bowl-shaped lamp cover on the bathroom ceiling was filled to the brim with water, with the light bulb happily sitting inside it. Oh shit, light off. Drained the water from the lamp cover, mopped up that bathroom too. But still, it didn't seem like enough water for what had happened. So I went even lower. Below that bathroom, on the ground floor, there was a corridor, luckily, not another room. But the ceiling had gotten so wet that it collapsed. A 2 by 3 meter section of it had come crashing down onto the carpet. After 15 minutes in a sauna-like bathroom, 30 minutes of cleaning and clearing the rubble, I finally stepped outside for some fresh air. That's when my roommate walked past, took one look at me and asked, "Did someone puke on you?" Since then, whenever I say I can't fix something, they actually believe me and call a professional. Won't get paid more for doing my job quicker? Alright, I'll just do my job slower. I'm a software developer at a medium-sized company where I would get a project and a time frame to get said project done. This time frame is insane, not because of the lack of time to get it done, but because of the excessive amount of time it would give me. Something I could get done in 2 weeks is given 3 months to complete. My first 6 months at the company were spent with me doing said projects and the amount of time they took me as opposed to the amount of time given for them to be completed. And when my performance review came back, I assumed my raise and bonus would reflect my performance. As many of you can probably guess from where I'm posting this story, my raise did not in fact reflect my performance, and instead was the base amount my contract guaranteed. My response to this was not to complain, as I frankly didn't care, and instead to just stop submitting my progress at the same pace I had been doing it. I still did it in the 2 weeks for 3 months, but it was a work-from-home job, and I would just add in bits and pieces to keep the progress at the expected pace, while having the completed project on a personal machine. I still work there and have been working there for 4 years now, and am very happy spending maybe 2 months of the year doing my job and the working my second job at a different business as a software developer, as it's a work-from-home job, and there are no mandatory check-ins or anything of the sort. I've been offered a decent raise to return to my original pace multiple times, but I've declined each time, and after around 1.5 years they accepted the current pace as I still do quality work with no delays. I guess don't shaft me originally and expect me to change my mind when you realize my value. No idea. I just make way more money than I would have needed to, and now effectively get triple my salary, as my other job makes twice my lousy job. If I tell you to spray fairways, you spray fairways. No problem, boss. My first job out of college, I was working as an assistant superintendent on a golf course. One of the most common jobs I was assigned was to spray pesticides on fairways, greens, tees, etc. One particular day, I was spraying fairways, and one of the crew guys who was on the next hole over needed help with their machine because it had broke down. So I stopped spraying and went over and helped him figure out what was wrong with the machine. My boss, the superintendent, came riding up on his golf cart and starting absolutely blasting me for stopping, and told me that if my job is to spray fairways, that is the only thing I need to be worried about. So I got back on the spray rig and kept on spraying. 2 weeks later, the same exact scenario happened. I was spraying fairways and a crew guy needed help out on the course. I just kept spraying and ignored the crew guy. My boss was making his rounds on the golf cart and came over to me and started yelling at me, saying that if I see someone needs help, I need to be able to break off from what I'm doing and help that person. I'm a manager and that's my job, yada yada. Then he goes, "Do you understand me?" And I said, "No, I don't. 2 weeks ago I did exactly that, and you told me to keep spraying fairways if that is my task." He got all red in the face and drove off in his golf cart and came back like 30 minutes later, and told me to just use my best judgment from now on if it looked like a crew guy needed help. City's cheap overtime policy. Backfires, gives garbage collectors double the work. This was in the late 90s. My city decided to save a few bucks by not paying overtime to garbage collectors during the holidays. Instead of coming up with a reasonable solution, they told the garbage collectors to only pick up 2 bags per household, regardless of how much trash was actually out. Here's the kicker. There was no rule for residents. We could put out as many bags as we wanted. The city didn't bother communicating anything to us, so when Christmas came, which fell on a Thursday, one of the usual garbage days so no trash pickup, everyone put out their mountain of holiday trash like normal. Wrapping paper, boxes, leftovers, whatever didn't fit in the bins was bagged and sent to the curb. The following Monday, another trash pickup day, garbage collectors, following orders, only took 2 bags per house. The rest just sat there. By the end of the week, the streets looked like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie, with bags piled high on curbs and sidewalks. The result? Absolute chaos. Some houses had 10+ bags sitting out. The garbage collectors had no choice but to haul it all away because, let's be real, there was no way this backlog was going to fix itself. In the end, the city ended up paying overtime anyway because the backlog from 1 week of savings was impossible to clear in regular shifts. Instead of saving money, they gave the garbage collectors twice the work and had to scramble to deal with the mess. So you want to know everything I do in a day? Fine. This happened some 15 years ago, but a recent post on here reminded me. I once worked in a municipal archive as an employee of a contractor company. As in, the city contracted the firm and they contracted me and a few other people to do the work. We had an abandoned cinema full of pallets, each with a mountain of file boxes we had to index and catalog, since the archive had been unattended for something like 30 years. Of course, they gave us the shittiest contract they legally could, and paid us literal peanuts for a high qualification job with legal responsibility. But I was young and needed the money. So our bosses got paid per job, but we got paid monthly. They wanted the job done as quickly as possible, so they could take another one, and started pressuring us to do a sloppy job in order to finish quickly. They were in a different city, and their latest idea was to call us on the phone every day 2 minutes before our time to go to ask what had we done that day and pressure us. The calls would go for maybe half an hour, making us late. We were in a remote town with horrible transport connections, and we didn't drive. So if we didn't go out on time, we'll have to wait hours for the next bus, plus an hour-and-a-half bus ride home. I guess the idea was to punish us, and hope we'll go quicker so they won't need to extend the call to pressure us. But they didn't want to admit to, I guess they legally couldn't, so they just said they needed to be updated daily. Cue malicious compliance. After the second time they pulled that shit, I started spending at least the last half an hour of every workday pulling together a very tediously detailed written report of everything we did that day and emailing it to them at precisely my clock out hour. Then, when they called, I said, "Don't worry, you have the daily update in your inbox. It took me half an hour. Now it's my time to go home," bye, and hung up. Of course, work got delayed by at least half an hour each day. But what could they do? I was strictly complying with their request for information, in writing, and with every little detail so they don't need to remember. And legally, in Spain, they couldn't fire us without justification unless they canceled the project with the city. They did call me back for a different project, but when they realized I wouldn't stand for other shit they tried to pull, they actually canceled the project and let me go. They had the gall to still promise to call me for another one soon.
Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, make sure to give a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell for more videos. See you soon again.